I watched Nick Fuentes these last few days, and there basically has been a split in his community, the Groypers. But not only there also has been more of a wide split or wider split among basically everyone who is interested in what's happening and the official explanations and everything. Now there is one thing that I want to say on the onset and from the onset, and that's that I hopefully this is the last video that I will make about this whole Charlie Kirk shooting, because even though this is I've stated in my previous video, this is archive for me that I just made public, so maybe someone can stop by and discover something new or hear some of my opinions that may come in handy. But even though I still think there should be a limit to what I'm going to share and how much, and I don't want to be perceived as someone who's trying to build up his channel on someone's death. So I decided, hopefully this will be the last video that I will make regarding this thing, but if there are also, of course, won't be some kind of new discoveries and stuff like that. Anyways, there has been a split, and Nick Fuentes himself, he sort of flip-flopped on this. I've watched one video when he said that it is basically it's not likely that Israel would do that, and that they really had no motive.
I love when I don't immediately come out and blame Israel, and people's first thing is like, first of all, I know it's real, but I'm not saying it, right? Like if I don't come out the day of and say Israel did it with no evidence, it's not that I don't believe that. It's not that that's not happening. It's that, no, I'm definitely know it, but I'm just withholding it for some reason. People say, no, Nick knows, but he just can't say it because he's afraid. He got the call. He's avoiding it. Oh, I'm disappointed. It's like, miss me with all that. If that's you, just get away from me. I've had it with the low IQ conspiracy stuff. I put 90% of you on to the conspiracies. I put you on. And now, you know, people with their heuristic thinking, like high-level political crisis, Israel at fault. Like that's their thinking. Rather than a mental model where you say Israel influences our society. There are billionaires. They have this intelligence operation. They will capitalize or generate events for discrete interests. Rather than like that being the mental model, your mental model is something bad happened, it was Israel. That's the syllogism. 9/11 was bad and Israel was behind it. Therefore, all bad things that happened, Israel are behind them or are presumed to be behind them. And I used to think that was just like a straw man that Jews made, but clearly that's how a lot of people think. They can't handle it. Now, everything that happens is a Palantir MK Ultra limited hangout by Mossad. Half of you didn't even know about any of that until 3 days ago. And now it's like, oh, Trump is going to war with Venezuela. Is this about MK Ultra and Palantir and it's a limited hangout? It's like, no, not everything is that. But that's because probably 70% of the population is not even capable of critical thinking. It's like, I think I have adherents and acolytes. They get it. They understand. And then something like this happens and they're like, Israel did it, obviously. And if you disagree, you got the call. It's like, okay, or why would they kill their top guy? Like, did anyone stop and think that Charlie Kirk was arguably up until a few months ago their top guy? Is there even room for skepticism that they would kill someone that was so steadfastly supporting them? In other words, if you don't automatically assume that they killed him, even though it's sort of far-fetched on its face, oh, well, that's because you're like a bad faith actor. Like, that's the part that I really hate. And I saw a lot of that. I saw people saying I was avoiding the topic. I'm not mentioning it because I'm afraid to. I believe it's true, but I'm being strategic about it. And to tell you the truth, we didn't have any information until a few days ago. The guy turned himself in on Thursday. We had some oblique insinuations that Israel and Charlie Kirk had some tension. There were rumors. There's this piece in the gray zone with anonymous sources. And so I kind of put the pieces together over the weekend. And I put together a picture for you that is really circumstantial. There's not really a concrete connection. There is no real link there. There's just some circumstantial evidence of things that coincided with this. And yeah, you can create a motive if you're committed to it, but it's by no means cut and dry or unambiguous. I don't really see a smoking gun here. There's some things that are conspicuous. Certainly you could see where, they were upset with Charlie, but, people jumping to conclusions, oh, it's them. And anyone that doesn't say it's them, they're lying. Like, okay, you didn't know what Palantir was 3 months ago, but now you're the expert. Okay. And you're the expert because you just assume everything's Israel and I don't. Okay.
And then the other one where he sort of came around and said that, well, it's possible that they've done it or that they've been involved. I'm going to further present my case why I think this is, even debating this is a whole like nonsense. We should debate it, but we should be very aware of, I think everyone should be, and many people already are very aware of what Israel has been doing, not only in Europe, but mainly in the US and all the false flags and psyops and everything. So, there have been some arguments why Israel was not the one that done it. And people said, even Nick said, and there were other people, I would like to address also other people that watch Nick, for example, and were with him on this. People said that Israel had no motive and that there are no real receipts that Charlie was turning against Israel. And I think that's absolute nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. That Israel had no real motive and that Charlie was there's no real evidence that he's been turning away from them. That he's been a good little, slave and was always with them. I think that's honestly intellectually dishonest. And Nick oftentimes talks about, the Republican Party being insulting to people's intelligence. And I think this is also one of the cases where saying that Israel really had no motive is insulting to everyone's intelligence. And the best people are, well, they had no motive, plus the FBI caught the perpetrator, so it's done. It's just pure bullshit. So by this logic, we're going to believe the official narrative about JFK because if FBI said so, or we're going to believe the official narrative about 9/11 because FBI said so. It's nonsensical. You should. At this point, okay, let me phrase it like this. At this point, it should be common knowledge that whatever these agencies are going to spew is nonsense. Sure, you should verify it, but more likely than not, and by more likely, I mean basically it's basically guaranteed that whatever they're going to spew, it's gonna be nonsense. It's gonna be some kind of damage control. It's gonna be some kind of deception, because essentially they're built for that. That's why they were created, not to solve real crimes. That's what's presented to public. CIA and FBI are like they're intelligence agencies and they solve real crimes and protect you. It's bullshit. They're actually doing the opposite of that, and that's the real modus operandi that they are doing. That's their main purpose. Whatever is told to the public is just bullshit. They could never admit to that. Oh, we're just gaslighting you, So this is what I take an issue with. You cannot just come to me and tell me, oh, well, they called the perpetrator and they said so. Now the G director of the FBI is saying that our friend Jeffrey Epp I'm not going to say his name because yeah, he's not our friend. But that Jeffrey Epps they never trafficked anyone, and I'm trying to be sort of correct here because I don't want YouTube to obliterate my channel already. So with old Jeffrey did not traffic anyone. That's what the G director of the FBI said as of late. So how credible are they? I mean, there are multiple reports from victims and from everyone that it was a trafficking ring. Okay, so and now he's contradicts everything. So what's the point? Okay, what's the point of these agencies? They're just taking a piss right now. Okay, they're just taking a piss right now. They're trying to see what can they get away with. Okay, they're trying to see that. How much can they lie? That's all they're really doing right now. And so this is why you should never ever trust any intelligence agencies. I don't care where they're from. So with that established, base premise is that whatever the FBI is trying to sell us is we should not buy it. That's the basic premise. Now, people are saying, and Nick also said it some time ago, or few days ago, with the way he flip-flopped on this, and it was very, very rapid. It's hard to keep track when he said what, but few days ago, I think it was like 2 days ago or something like that, he said that there was no motive or something along those lines. I know many people were repeating that there was no motive. Now he actually, in the latest video that I've seen from him, admitted that there actually was a huge motive for Israel to take out Charlie. So I'm not gonna repeat it. I feel like I should just slap the Nick's video in here so he can say for me, because it was pretty neatly summarized. But the point is that there are sources that claim that Charlie has been offered a lot of money from old Benji in Israel, and that he declined. And there have been cracks showing in Charlie's seemingly unwavering faith in Israel and pro-Israeli narrative that many people. There have been cracks showing, and many people have not really noticed them. And they just say, well, he said a few things. I mean, he said many important things, and there have been cracks showing a long time now. It started around 2023. And if you compare Charlie's support for Israel before 2023, it's something completely different. Since the invasion and the war with Gaza and with Hamas, I think it started to get to him. And so I don't know if I link those clips into this video, or if I will just make the separate video where I will it would be a compilation from what I could find of clips of Charlie asking very, very, you could say for him, uncharacteristic questions. But there's no doubt and no question that Charlie has been turning slowly away from Israel and from his donors. And then when you factor in the fact, or the report that he declined a large amount of money, and then he furthermore he declined to go to Israel to see Netanyahu, that was sort of, or at least they took it as an open declaration of war. Like, you're not going to cooperate with us, and you are now going to smear us. Like, why wouldn't you have taken the money? Because you don't want to make any promises which you cannot uphold. So this was a major point, a major turning point, if you will, and so Charlie declined the money. He declined the invitation, and now you have the result. So it's not true that Charlie was still the staunch supporter of Israel. There have been cracks showing since 2023, and last month it has been actually a lot. And if you can read between the lines a little bit, he had these conversations with Megyn Kelly, and where he said that basically he was appalled by how he was treated, because that's how you're treated by this lobby, by these people. When you sign this sort of a contract with the devil, this is how you're treated. Like, it's just, it's one whole purity test. You cannot say anything that would not be directly agreed upon beforehand with them. Because if you say anything that would deviate from your unwavering support, then you are viewed as a traitor. And they tried to give Charlie a second chance, but he declined. So there has been a motive. And so people are asking, well, but wouldn't they just lose? Wouldn't that be risky for them to just do it out in the open like that? I mean, again, they're doing things, so they're doing things to accomplish multiple purposes, and this is what you have to get into your mind, and really just think of it. Every time something like this happens, think of what kinds of purposes it's going to fulfill. So Charlie was turning against them. Wouldn't be too risky for them to take him out. No, because, and this is exactly also what Nick said, and also what I said before, even before Nick, Charlie had an audience. He had an audience of young Americans, Gen Z. And Netanyahu, by the way, is on record talking about how they need to take care of Gen Z. That they need to take care of Gen Z. Because Gen Z is a problem. That's what he said on record.
But if you're telling me that there's work to be done on Gen Z and across the West, yes. And by the way, it's not only our job.
I am Gen Z. By the way, fuck you. You're not going to do shit. Fuck you. That's one thing. Another thing is that Gen Z was the main audience for Charlie, and him turning away from Israel and sort of red pilling this whole audience would be disastrous for Israel. It would be disastrous. They need new batch of young Americans supporting them. This is exactly what Nick said. I think I will just link or edit in the part where he said this.
Now, if the youth are being lost, this poses an existential problem to Israel. And if in particular, the youth in the right wing of America becomes indifferent to Israel, then they are truly alone. They have lost China, Russia, the whole Muslim world, Europe, Africa, Latin America. Who do they got? It's just us. And what is America's support conditioned upon? The Republican constituency in America. If we're up to the Democrats, we wouldn't support Israel. If it was up to the Zoomers, we wouldn't support Israel. It's Republican boomers that are keeping it together. Without America, they are alone. And without the boomers, they don't have America. So they need the young people in America. They need the right wing in America. Do you think that's why Netanyahu offered Charlie Kirk $150 million to support Israel? Do you think that's why it mattered to them so much? Netanyahu was going to open the floodgates, according to these reports, and unleash $150 million of Israel-controlled money that would probably come from America. It wouldn't come from the Israeli treasury. It wouldn't come from their finance ministry. Netanyahu would order it, and it would be Jewish American billionaires that actually dispense the cash. He would double their money. Do you know how much money $150 million cash is? Charlie Kirk would overnight become a very rich man. He could be president. He could be kingmaker. He was offered a deal. All you got to do is work for Israel, work for the genocidal state that is subverting our sovereignty and our country. And why was it of such great importance to Israel? Because they knew that if they had Charlie Kirk, they would have the young right-wing men. Because Charlie Kirk, he's not just a live streamer. On the contrary, he's not just a debater. Charlie Kirk has a personal relationship with Trump. Charlie Kirk is the bag man for the GOP. And Charlie Kirk runs the largest youth organization for the conservatives in America. So he's a very powerful man. He's a very important piece on the board. If you got Charlie, you got the young, you got the money, and you got Trump's ear. Maybe you're a kingmaker. Excuse me. Maybe you're a kingmaker in 2028. That's why it was worth $150 million to Netanyahu. So they offered to give him all this money. He declined because he knew the money came with strings attached. That was a double or nothing. Look, the Zionists gave him all this money thus far. He's having doubts. Well, we will sweep aside those doubts by dropping literally a pallet of cash. Double or nothing. Will you work for us? Yes or no? He said no. They said, come to Israel, meet with me. Charlie Kirk said no. Now he's dead.
And it's funny that he couldn't think of it beforehand when he was sort of denying, or sort of he wasn't really having it with the theories, and he said like it's the conspirators that are peddling this or claiming this. Funny he didn't really think of this before, because like to me and to many other people it was the moment it happened, like we knew why. We knew what was going on behind the scenes, and you can really hear it from Charlie when you listen to him with the Megyn Kelly and his personal when he said something on camera that he knew would be considered controversial. You can just see it. You can just see it.
Fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza. I mean I don't use that term lightly. Okay, they're talking about basically removing 2.5 million people. Okay, this is what they don't understand. You and I, Megan, and Tucker is in the same category, and they've tried to go after Tucker.
Yeah. Is
that the more you attack our moral character, the more we're going to double down in a direction, because 100%. Screw you, I don't do it that way, okay?
Right.
Like tell me I'm wrong. Cool. Tell me if I got my facts wrong. By the way, on the Epstein thing, Naftali Bennett says he wasn't an Epstein agent. We have to be pursuers of truth. They've denied it. Fine. Let's keep digging. Okay, fine. But the thing that I think is being lost is, like, on some part of the population, you can scold them into silence, right? But if I have any deviation of a purity test, any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megan, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly, right? I'm an American, okay? Like, I represent this country, and I don't even understand that paradigm. But Megan, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megan, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts. When the hostile reaction is that now Megan and Charlie are enemies,
Right.
boy, I'll tell you, like you're not gonna, I wouldn't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues.
Right. And to me, I laugh because it's like, I've been bullied by the best of them, the best. And it didn't work. And it's not going to work with them. The more you try to tell me I can't criticize Israel, the more likely I am to do it, to focus on exactly what you're doing, right? Like what are you doing that you're so defensive? You don't own me. I don't take $1.
And even though I said that Candace Owens, that you should not trust her because also how flip-floppy she was in the past, in this particular case, I like what she's doing. Let's just call it that. I like what she's doing, and she's questioning of the official narrative. Is it also some kind of a psyop? I mean, we can be schizo like that. We don't know, but I'm interested in whether or not someone's telling the truth. And so far, I think she's been doing a pretty good job in this particular matter. Maybe she just doesn't give a damn anymore because he was her friend. It might be. Anyways, that's besides the point now. The point was that Israel had a lot of motivation to take out Charlie, because look at what it cost, okay? Look at exactly what happened afterwards. There you have Ben Shapiro ready to take the bloody mic. And being on his show, the Charlie Kirk show, when Charlie's not cold in the ground. Already trying to spin him as some kind of a eternal pro-Israeli supporter. A defender. Immediately. So they took over his show immediately. This happened, as I said, he was not cold in the ground when this happened. I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. There are multiple purposes his assassination would fill. And we can see it from their behavior, that they're acting really, really strangely. Netanyahu on TV saying it's ridiculous to say that we've done it. It just makes sense. And now, many people are saying, well, is there a smoking gun? Listen, is there a smoking... I mean, in 9/11, you have multiple smoking guns. 3 to be exact. Official explanation is that the terrorist did it. Still, that's the official explanation. And those same, you can see these sort of coincidences just piling up. Let me just fix my mic a little bit. You can see these coincidences just piling up. And this is how you can spot a false flag. Because there are just multiple coincidences that have basically no chance of happening organically. And every time they are in favor of one particular group, that is, as luck would have it, as coincidence would have it, they also control the US and Europe and Russia and China too. So, and it's every time it's just a coincidence. Isn't it funny? Seemingly impossible probabilities. And this is exactly the same thing that's happened now. You have this, and this is people, there are people that are still questioning where he was shot from. To be honest, me personally, I think he was shot from the roof. there are people that claim he wasn't. I'm not disputing that. To me personally, it's sort of irrelevant. It's sort of irrelevant to me personally, because I already have my thesis backed by many circumstantial evidence, by a lot of circumstantial evidence about who did it, in most probability. Where was he shot from? Who shot? You know, we can talk about that. I don't want to talk about that anymore, because I don't think Charlie was a bad man. I think he was misguided, and I think he was waking up to how he was essentially used, and that the values he held were very much not held by the other party that paid him from the start. But about the coincidences and seemingly impossible probabilities, you have the same thing in here. What people are not talking about enough, in my opinion, is that there has been a book published, and I keep repeating this, there has been a book published 9th of September about his shooting. So I ran this through ChatGPT, and I asked him, like, what is, because what is the official explanation? That's what I asked him, and ChatGPT told me that, and that's also that also corroborates what I've seen before, that Amazon said that, well, it's a metadata bug, which basically causes false date to appear. Now, sorry, something in my eye. Okay, now, that would be, first of all, that metadata bug is not very common. So that's a first. Okay, that's first the first thing that really makes is strange. Okay, that metadata bug is not very common. But Amazon themselves stated that the process of review and approval of a book to be published, to be on their site, takes 3 to 10 business days. It's from 3 to 10 business days. The length, the time it takes. And so even if it was a metadata bug and someone published it immediately after a shooting, it does not explain why it takes 3 to 10 business days. Also, from what I've been able to find, there might be some books that are published immediately with little approval, or with little, time between them being submitted and approved, but it's very, very rare. It's very rare. Mostly it takes from 3 to 10 business days. So that would mean that someone would have to write that book around 6th or 7th of September at the latest. Someone will have to do it that way. It makes no sense, and there is no official explanation. I've searched. I actually asked ChatGPT, because if AI is good at something, they're great at giving official explanations. They love to do it. And so I asked it, what was the official explanation? They said, well, it's just the metadata bug. And I said, but even still, it had to be written beforehand. And it said, yep, well, they never addressed that. So there you go. It just makes no sense. The official explanation makes no sense, but I see not many people talk about this. And now, if this would be the only thing that's really strange about it, I would maybe try to somehow, gaslight myself about it not being really an issue. The problem is that you then have had a official letter from, who was it? Official letter from Rabbi David Yosef. the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, or Sephar. I don't even know how it's pronounced. I don't care. A prominent religious leader known for his scholarly work and leadership within Jewish community. There's a blah 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 blah. And he said, and he wrote the letter to the Kirk family. Where he says, with deep sorrow and great pain, I received the devastating news of the murder of Charlie solely because he was a clear and unwavering voice of truth. You know, see, you have this messaging again of truth. Like, we all know what he means. And he was a staunch supporter of Israel. That's what he means. And Charlie was a true friend of the Jewish people, there you go, and of the state of Israel in his great deeds and noble. So they essentially need to off him because he could turn against them, and so they can frame him as martyr for their cause, like just hijacking, pure and very common hijacking. So his great deeds are noble, blah 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 blah. You know, okay. But it was published on 12th of September, or around 12th of September. Mic is still falling, and I really don't want to have any edits in this video because I don't have a lot of... I have other videos that I'm editing right now, and there are other videos that I'm currently editing, and I don't want this to be another video that I'm gonna have to edit. So it was published on 12th of September. The problem is that on media, in social media, I think it was on Twitter or something, X, it was published on 12th of September. The problem is that on the letter, it says 2nd of September. It says 2nd of September. It was published on 12th, but on the letter, it says 2nd of September. On the written letter, it's a 2nd. How it's captured, yep, it's an official statement, 2nd of September. Published on social media, so in digital form, it published on 12th. So another coincidence. Now I asked ChatGPT because I had no idea who this guy was before, and quite frankly I don't care. I asked ChatGPT, was he known or is he known for making typos, or his clergy for making, because he said that, well, it was clerical typo. And I said, well, is his clergy known for making these kinds of mistakes? And ChatGPT said that he went through their work and that they're not known for making mistakes like this. And you know, so that's interesting. So all of it, just coincidence would have it that they've just made a mistake in this particular situation. They've made a typo, and no one double checked. No one double checked. They had two dates there. The Hebrew date and Gregor our date, and they had two dates there. And so you would think, well, of course they're probably making it through and typing into a converter, so it will automatically convert the dates. The problem is that no one double checked even a single one of those dates. No one double-checked a single one of these dates? Someone might have been like dyslexic or something and missed the one, so they thought, oh, it's September 12th, but it was only September 2. I don't know if that's exactly how dyslexia works, but they've never noticed that instead of 5785 Elul, it was supposed to be 5795 Elul, whatever that is. It's you know, no one noticed. You're writing a letter to someone who was a true friend of your people, and you don't even double check the date to make sure that it's the correct date. Or was this meant to be seen with plausible deniability that, well, we published it on 12th, but we meant it to be published we published it on 12th, and the September 2nd was just a typo. Was it something like that? So they have plausible deniability, but they are just laughing to our faces. With the book that must have been published before, written before on Amazon, and then this. So coincidences all over the place. Coincidences all over the place. Everywhere is a coincidence. Luck would have it, or misfortune. I don't think that's not. That's just, when you have a pattern recognition trained to some level, which I do have. Name of the channel is Unsubverted. You start to see, you just can't help but notice these coincidences. I asked even ChatGPT, I asked him, what would be the chance of this happening? What would be the chance of, having these things again in succession happening? What are the chances? I can't find it right now, but yeah, I said, what are the chances? I think he said something along those lines of extremely low. Having made a data bug, which is not super common in and of itself, and then the unexplained 3-day at the minimum waiting period. So you would have to have a metadata bug for a book that's been, again, the bug is rare, but the book would also have to be rarely approved the basically very hour it was submitted. It just another, and then you have the letter, and they're never making mistakes in their letters. They're not making mistakes in their letters. All of a sudden, the date is wrong. Both of these things happening, the coincidence. And what about the person, the man who was also Jewish, who created a distraction immediately after a shooting, and they still want me to believe that it was just a lone shooter? This was actually a point Candace Owens had. When was the last time there was an unscripted or organic, it sounds horrible, I know, but organic, non-planned shooting where there was just someone who reacted by diverting attention on themselves and away from the suspect? Just someone out of the blue. When was it? When did it happen? Never. And these are always the firsts, as with 9/11. When did it happen that the high-rise building fell purely due to fire? Never before. And never since. Wouldn't you know it? Just a coincidence, guys. Nothing to see here. What are the probabilities of 3 buildings, each of them having different damage? Different amount of damage placed on different floors, having fires which are asymmetrical. You cannot control the fire in the building. The buildings even have different weight. One was purely destroyed by fire. What are the chances of all these 3 buildings in succession falling down to their own footprint? And I asked, by the way, again, ChatGPT, this. And after much deliberation, and after many dialogues or conversation, and after a conversation that just went on, camera died on me, so there goes the editing. But where was I? Yeah, so he admitted that the chances of something like that happening, and I've had this conversation, by the way, before I disclose those numbers. I had this conversation few times with AIs, It was ChatGPT. So a few times with ChatGPT. So in a few conversation on this topic with ChatGPT, and I've got the range, like the range of the probability, the number, numerical range, and so ChatGPT estimated that the chances of that happening are from 1 to 5 billion, so that's the best chance, to 1 to 50 trillion. Because I asked him, like, you know, like if you can just crash a plane into a skyscraper and light it on fire, and it just consistently falls into its own footprint, then it even, like, it might even probably be like fucking cheaper than having controlled demolition to take care of it. I know it probably wouldn't be because planes are quite expensive, but you know, it's just nonsensical. It just makes absolutely no sense. Three buildings collapsing into their own footprint, and it's you know, and then as a cherry on top, because they collapsed due to extensive fires. Well, luck, pure miracle occurred after. Because they found the passports in the rubble. Readable ones, by the way. What are the chances? Lo and behold, the passports. The passports that now gives us the case for war, to go into the war with the exact country or exact countries we've been lobbied to go into the war by AIPAC. So that's what's happening in the US. I'm talking about the US way too much. I should probably also talk about Europe, since I'm from Europe. But the US is an important battleground, so that's why I'm concentrating right now on the US. It's an important battleground for all of us. And it's important for the free world, for world to be actually free so that US will actually free themselves. So that's just another like bunch of coincidences with an outcome that equals to, or that results in a very favorable outcome towards one particular nation. And then you have another thing. Listen, I know that what I've said about the AfD in Germany. I know what I've said, and I stand by it. I think AfD, to a large degree, is just a controlled side, so political party. I think they're just a bunch of pretenders from the most part. Now, I'm not saying there aren't any real politicians in there. Or, wait, not anymore there aren't, because they were killed before the elections. I think those were regional elections in Germany. They were scheduled. And another coincidence, 7 of them died within a span of 2 weeks. And authorities said that there is that there was nothing organized. There was nothing organized, it's just a coincidence. Coincidence that actually again benefits Israel. Because who benefits the most from Germany being enslaved? It's not Europe. Of course, it's not Europe. Germany is vitally important to Europe. It's the most important country in Europe. Why do you think they did such a number on them? So who does it benefit that AfD politicians, the real ones, have been dealt with, have been assassinated? The same as Charlie. They're doing it in waves. That did happen like a month ago. And now we have this Charlie thing. They're doing it in waves. Maybe we can expect more assassinations in a year. Or maybe they're not done yet, then there will be some kind of peaceful sort of period for 9 or 10 months or something, and then in a year they also like, I don't know, they chose September and August for it, or end of August. So maybe during this time next year, someone else will be assassinated. We don't know. It's just a huge coincidence. By the way, also 7 AfD politicians. By the way, yeah, I almost forgot. In the span of 2 to 3 weeks, 16 politicians in Germany actually died, but 7 were from AfD. So I would wager that those 16 politicians were not directly sponsored and were not directly didn't. Let's just say that they didn't go to bash their head against a certain wall, okay? And so they've all been without any kind of, at least according to official sources, organized activity that would connect them. They all were dealt with. They all died. Some from suicide, some from heart attacks. I mean, they just can't make it up. Those memes, oh, he was suicided, or he was heart attacked. Those memes, they've done it again. They did it again. What are the chances of 7 politicians from a single party dying within the span of 2 weeks before the, I think, regional elections, if I remember correctly? What are the chances? 1 in millions? Hundreds of millions? That has never happened before. Apart from, because then the assassinations of Romanovs were just a coincidence. They died all at the same time, but it was just a coincidence. Nothing to see here. I mean, really? This is incredible. It's literally incredible. Like, it has no credibility at all. So, you have these things happening, and they just coincidences on an unprecedented scale, basically. And they always benefit one certain nation. So take it for what you will. I'm just saying that if you still think that what they did to Charlie was done by some 22-year-old liberal with a transgender boyfriend or whatever that was. And of course the inscribings on the cartridges, like, how can you do it without them? How can you do it without them? It's just really funny to imagine bunch of FBI boomers, like 65-year-old FBI boomers and some bit younger FBI agents just brainstorming, like, how are we going to paint this guy as the perpetrator? How are we going to pin it on the left? Well, let's inscribe some transgender bullshit on the cartridges. It's it's just it's literally unbelievable. Like, seriously. We deserved better psyops, man. We deserve better psyops. This was very bad. This was very amateur. Trying to pin it on the left. And Nick said that there was one of these things that he said, that there was this guy, Blumenthal, I don't even remember his first name. I knew him from because sometimes people talked about him. And Nick said that, well, because his track record, and he's a leftist, a liberal, I'm not trying to say their names too much because YouTube is definitely not controlled by them, so that's why I cannot say the names in here. but he was one of those people, and that he's a liberal, and you know, that he's now trying to pin it on Israel. That's what Nick said. And come on, like, listen, just because he does not have a credible track record does not mean that he cannot be right in this situation. This is actually exactly what I talked about in my previous video about 2 most common types of liars, where I said that you should not listen to them at all, or you should fact check everything that they say. And so just because someone is not credible, from their history is not credible, that does not mean that he has to lie. This is actually what they do all the time. You have someone who just spews a bunch of bullshit, and then they make him tell the truth. So no one will believe it. Everyone will discard it as a lie, because he always lies. So what Nick did, he should not have done. You should not discard that theory just because he does not have a credible track record. It's completely normal. I'm not telling you trust liars. No, do not trust anyone, actually. What I'm saying is you should verify. Does it make sense? Israel would do it, yes. Oh, and this guy is also claiming it. That reaction that this guy is claiming, therefore I'm not going to subscribe to that theory, you should get that out of your brain. It should not be there. That's actually, if you want to play those bullshit partisan games, that's actually what the left is doing all the time. Or you have the same opinion as this guy, who is wrong, who is bad, or who we have painted as bad. So therefore your opinion is invalid. It's a logical fallacy. You shouldn't in this day and age really use that as some kind of argument. Not in a debate with someone, and not even in your internal monologue. If you have one, I hope you have. I hope you do. I hope you do, because a lot of people don't these days, and that's also why we're in these things are happening. Why we are in such a state. But yeah. You know, so there are things. So just because Candace Owens and that Blumenthal guy and others are saying that, you know, Israel could have done it, that does not matter, or that does not disprove in the slightest that Israel could have done it. So yeah. On the other hand, Netanyahu saying that they didn't do it is suspicious. That's suspicious. That's very suspicious. Whatever. So Nick has flip-flopped on this. I don't know why he's doing. I don't know why he just sometimes keeping your mouth shut about things you don't have an opinion on yet is the correct course of action. You know, sometimes just keeping your mouth shut is just the correct course of action. Or for some people, most of the times keeping your mouth shut is the correct course of action. But I don't know why he was so dismissive of the possibility of Israel doing it from the get-go, when now he's slowly coming around to, you know, Israel might have done that. And I know that it's scary. I mean, I'm in no position, you know, there are like, I have like 3 views on this channel at the time of recording. I can only imagine what Nick is going through, you know. Like they just destroyed his main rival, and so there might be this doubt in his mind, which brings me actually to one more thing that people are saying, and that's, well, but it wouldn't make sense that they would kill Charlie and not Nick. Well, Nick was never a supporter of them, of theirs. So Nick does not have the ear or doesn't have the reach, as much of a reach as Kirk had in terms of reaching young college, young Gen Z, young Gen Z mostly in college, conservatives and reaching colleges all together. Kirk was reaching young people from all parts of the political spectrum, which is fake, by the way, but from all parts of the political spectrum, from colleges. And Nick does not have such a reach, and Nick is already painted. Nick has already been labeled every label you can label him as, or you can pin on him. So he's not as credible in those in the let's call it just academia. It's really cringy to call it that, because it's everything but he's not as credible in those circles, let's just say. He does not have he does not have as much of a reach as Charlie did in those circles. And Charlie had tens of millions of people watching him. He had larger and farther reach than Nick. Even though you could argue, because Nick is banned from everywhere, so the fact that he can even reach so many people on his live streams and everything is already incredible, so you could argue the reach, but the point is, normies are not watching Nick. Normies are mostly, let's just say mostly. But young Gen Z conservatives and even liberals, by all means normies, young normies, were disproportionately the main audience, the target audience of Charlie. College-aged kids. And turning them away from Israel would have been a real disaster for them. So that's why they haven't done anything to Nick. Because essentially, and even Nick said this. Now I remember. I actually saw that video just a few minutes ago, an hour ago or so. Nick even said it himself, that Charlie had larger reach, and pro-Israeli people are already watching him. So him turning against them would be a huge problem. So that's about it. About Charlie's. One thing that I want to say though is the one thing I disagree on with Nick, and it was he said it during as a reaction during his reaction live stream to Charlie's murder, and he said that if you have a weapon in your hand, put it down. That's what he said. And I kind of get why he said it. You don't want to be perceived as inciting any kind of hatred or violence when you have that, when around 1 million or so people are watching him. You don't want that pinned on you. So I get it. You have to also be pragmatic in these things. With such a reach as Nick has, you have to be pragmatic. But what I took issue with is he said that vengeance is God's to dispense or distribute, or something along those lines. Like we should not be vengeful. We should not sort of administer retribution, because only God can do that. And so it's very inconsistent, and it's another kind of that's the flip-flopping that I take issue with in Nick's case. I like him overall, but there are things that he flip-flops on, and it's kind of irritating. And because he said that like Christian monarchy, I think I even written it in my notes somewhere, the Christian monarchy is based because of just wars and just crusades. And he's coming from a that's actually has a historical background. The many popes and bishops and warriors and kings, all of them Catholic Christian, were were overseeing the Crusades and approved and organized the Crusades. So it's not like Christianity has a history of being peaceful. They had no problem taking weapons into their hands. But now he's saying that if you have weapon in your hands, like, put it down. I understand sort of why he's saying that, but I just took an issue with it because what are you gonna do? I'm not here inciting violence. I'm not inciting violence, but what are you gonna do, Nick? Are you gonna vote harder in 3 years? Are you gonna vote harder? What are you gonna do? Do you think that you will just, the AIPAC will willingly dissolve or something like that? Even if it did, it would probably still be operating from the shadows, unofficially. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, vengeance is God's to distribute. That, what do you mean? Do you mean that all those popes and bishops and kings are now rotting in hell because of Reconquista of Spain, because of Crusades? Like, what do you mean? Christians historically took weapons into their hands. Because they said, God's will will be done through us. We are his soldiers and we're taking weapons into our hands and doing something about this. And in the US, it's I think it's the easiest thing. I'm not saying you should be violent. But you can literally, in the US, you can literally, in some states, I granted, but still, you can literally take weapon into your hands and go out and march and just protest peacefully with weapon in your hands. You will be exercising your First, your Second Amendment. Like, you can literally do this in some states in the US, and it's been done before. Without being violent, without shooting anyone. That would be really counterproductive, by the way, but you can do it literally in the US. So, you know, and have it as sort of a protest. Like, that's literally what the Constitution has been designed to do. So this is what I take. I understand why he said it, but it just rubbed me off the bad way. I wasn't really a fan of how he sort of worded it, you know, because it sounds sort of defeatist. That's my problem with it. And I'm not advocating for violence. That's illegal. You should not advocate and incite violence, okay? You should not do that. What I'm saying is that there are perfectly legal means in the US where you can literally walk with the weapon in your hand whilst being peaceful. So that's just my take on this. So hopefully I won't have to again, I wanted to make this video in 10 to 15 minutes, and it's been like more than half an hour. So it is what it is. But again, hopefully this will be the last time talking about Charlie Kirk. I have other videos currently in the making that I have to edit, and I'm editing. I have a video coming up about Putin, so that will be an interesting one. But I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. But I'm looking forward to it for myself. So, you know, that's I'm really just trying to, you know, inform people and maybe make them see that, make them realize that the official and even unofficial narratives that we are being told are they have an agenda. So that's it. See you in the next one.